Welcome to American Issues Take One on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today we'll talk about, more than anything, Trump is a statement of national corruption, making money on the backs of the American people. Our guest for the show is DeSoto Brown. We are so happy to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, DeSoto.
Thank you for having me, Jay. And we have a great deal to talk about in the realm of American corruption. And the statement sometimes is that corruption or decay or rot starts at the head. And in this case, that is more than true, more than we could ever have conceived of, because the rot in this case of corruption is residing and pushed by and enabled by the current president of the United States.
Well, we need to keep track of all the ways Trump is corrupting government and making money on the backs of the American people. But your point is very well taken. It's catching. It's a statement of the moral condition of the country. And if he is involved, and obviously involved, in corrupting government, making money on the backs of the American people, that spreads. It spreads all through the country, and you find that people in general, companies in general, doing the same thing. This show is a derivative of Heather Cox Richardson's most recent article, Letters from an American. We also spring from a commentator who recently criticized the Democratic Party for trying to chase Trump around on all of Trump's distraction issues. And his suggestion was, you've got to pick one thing and focus on that. And his suggestion in that regard was corruption is a great thing to focus on. And we should keep on focusing on it because it is going to continue. So we saw this corruption emerge in the inaugural committee fundraising in 2017 and thereafter. We saw the quid pro quo of the first impeachment involving Ukraine. We saw it in the hotels in Moscow, namely the Trump Hotel, which was, what do you want to call it, an obfuscation of the truth. And in so many ways thereafter, this should have been obvious to us at the very beginning of the Trump administration, but somehow he distracted us, he changed the subject, and we didn't follow it as much as we should have. So can you talk about some of the things that have come to light, at least the things we know about, because there are a lot of things we don't know about, DeSoto?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say that the reason a lot of this has been going on and has been allowed to continue to go on is because the Republican majority in the Senate and the House will not do anything about it. And therefore, even if Democrats point this out till they're blue in the face, nothing happens because Trump was impeached twice and it was outvoted twice. And it's just like what's clearly going on in Texas right now, too. High-level corruption, and the Republicans simply cover for other Republicans. So I have to just step back a little bit and say, Democrats can say what they want and scream about this as much as they want. But if the Republicans continue to cover for their own bad guys, which they are doing without question, without any fight, pushback, or anything, it just is enabled and it just continues to go on. So, for example, in Trump's first regime, first dictatorship, which was only a fraction of what's happening right now, the little things like constant breaking of the rule against commercial endorsements, let's say, in which it is considered either very bad taste or actually illegal for the president to literally endorse a commercial product. I'm not even talking about all the junk that he creates and sells for himself to earn money, the Bibles and the gold sneakers. I'm talking about him openly saying, buy this product, or in one case, his daughter openly saying, buy this product. And the most glaring example of this was the car lot that was impromptu created at the White House to sell Tesla cars. This is preposterously out. The mind boggles that this was even done. Cars were brought in so that he could go through a show of picking one that he was going to buy to show his support for Elon Musk because people are boycotting his products. What a slap in the face. I mean, he could have put up banners and one of those figures that's inflated with a fan in the base that keeps flying up and down and waving its arms. Why didn't he just do that too? And say, here's Honest Don's used car lot. Come on down for bargains. That's how offensive that was. And that's just one thing. So the fact that he endorses products, right, just as one example, blatantly illegal, and then creates his own products that he shills while he's president. Buy my meme coin. And again, when you look back, first of all, I have to also point out, this is not new. There's always been corruption. There's always been quid pro quo. There have always been shadowy deals in which things were exchanged in order for some political decision to be made that benefits an industry or benefits a specific company, or country too. But this is way out in the open. This is way bigger and way more obvious than it's ever been. And it's shameless. No one feels any reason to cover it up. Nobody feels that there's any reason to keep this sort of on the down low. It's just right in your face. They gave me this much money, therefore here's the executive order that benefits them specifically. And it's right in our faces. Obviously, I'm venting about this because it just is so astonishing to me. And I'm not addressing everything you asked me, but it's all true.
I don't think you'd be able to address everything because a lot of it is under the hood. This is not necessarily public. I mean, you talk about the things that are public and they're amazing, they're disgraceful, but there are a lot of things we don't hear about. The sale of influence, it comes in many forms. Political contributions as a quid pro quo for influence. It begins there, but it goes places we have no idea, and the press has no idea, so we don't know. But let me ask you this, DeSoto. You said that the Republicans, especially those in Texas, seem to go along with this. They do go along with it. And they follow, because it's viral, they follow the same patterns. But what about the base? Although it's shrinking these days, what about the base? The base goes along with it too. What is the thought process of the base about these obvious transgressions of the emoluments clause and so many other corruptions?
This is something that is impossible to completely comprehend. And that's because the base is in a cult. And in a cult, you will accept everything, regardless of how preposterous, regardless of how offensive, regardless of how dangerous, regardless of whether it's even personally affecting you in a bad way. You will just nod your head and say, he knows best. We'll do whatever he tells us to do. We'll go along with everything he does. He's smarter than us. He's more wealthy than us. He must therefore be superior to us because we elected him president. And if you have ever looked at interviews with people in small cults, usually religious-based cults, or if you've seen recordings of cult meetings, again, the same thing is going on. And it is astonishing because it's so illogical that you would expect that people would think clearly enough to say, no, wait, this doesn't make sense. This is actually hurting me. But in fact, if you have been brainwashed into believing it, everything that happens is not only okay, it's actually good. And one of the things that people will say, which again is incomprehensible, in admiration, they will say, but Donald Trump is a billionaire. but Elon Musk is a billionaire. Therefore, because they tell us they're billionaires, they are superior to us and they are superior to you who are criticizing them. And you are criticizing them not because they're bad, but because you're jealous and because you know they're better. Therefore, you can't deal with it and you pick at them. Well, again, how do you break through that is the question. Donald Trump boasted years ago he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose any votes. And that is horrifyingly true. And it's also horrifyingly true that when he said it, millions of people cheered. Millions of people said, yay, we agree with you. Yes, of course, go out and shoot somebody. We will still love you and we will still follow you and we will still do anything to support you. So that's the problem that we're dealing with here, regardless of how terrible the behavior is, regardless of how openly corrupt it is. Millions of people will still go along with it because they will follow him off a cliff. If he tells you, run and jump off that cliff, yes, President Trump, yes, we will do it. You know best.
They admire him for it. They say, he's out there selling golden sneakers. What a smart idea. The guy is a terrific businessman, and he's taking advantage of his position, as we all should and would. So they admire him for it. And this goes back to a strain in the American culture and American history. I'm sure you're well familiar with the robber barons back in the last part of the 19th century, where they were admired. It's this Bonnie and Clyde thing. If they're getting away with something, if they're violating the law, we admire them. They become folk heroes. And indeed, the robber barons were folk heroes. And so he is a folk hero. And I think his base, it's more than they go along. They're just so proud and they admire him for what he is doing. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And the terrible thing is that his behavior is equated with power and strength, not just power, but strength, leadership. Therefore, if he does something, it's because he's incredibly smart and incredibly successful and incredibly powerful, and it's all for the good. And not just for the good of him, which of course is truly his main concern is, how can I make more money? How can I be more powerful? Instead, it is he's doing this for us. He's doing it for the good of all of us who follow him. And so if he says, here's a private club that you have to pay $1 million to be a member of, and for that $1 million, you may get to interact with me personally, millions of people will say, oh, I wish I had $1 million so I could go be in his presence. I wish I could join his club. Maybe I might see him. Maybe he might look at me and speak to me because he's doing so much good. It isn't just that he's accumulating stuff and accumulating power. Whatever he does is seen as being good for me, his follower, me, his supporter, even if it is blatantly, obviously not good for me. Even if the tariffs he imposes will cause shortages and will cause prices to go up, I'll still follow him because he's godlike. And whatever he does is good for me, and he's a better person than I am. I could only wish to be in his presence, as I said, because he's so superior.
This strain that we're talking about is a huge part of his persona. He is distracting people with it. Whenever he gets in trouble, he finds something to distract everybody, so they forget that he got in trouble and stepped in something. I find it really remarkable that part of this distraction process, which we see throughout his time in office, is about corruption. Corruption, on the one hand, it shocks you, and on the other hand, you are drawn to it like the moth to the flame. Let me say also that he must be very charming personally. If he wants to shine down upon you, such as he did in his real estate career, he's able to do that. And even recently, the guy from MSNBC who went down and kissed his ring at Mar-a-Lago, or Bill Maher, who compromised himself, and so many others who compromised themselves. At the end of the day, Trump is charming, and he shows a certain attraction, a certain charisma to these people, and they capitulate. And that's part of it. It's sort of the other end of it. It's not just that he's making himself out to be a terrific businessman who sells golden sneakers, but also that when you get into his orbit, when you realize the dream of shaking his hand, you find that he can charm your wits out of you, and that's what happens also. So it's a whole combination of points on the persona, and I think if we are to fully understand the corruption, we have to understand American-style corruption as expressed by Donald Trump. He's a past master at it.
Again, it's wrapped up in a veneer of success and literally a veneer of gold, because he slaps gold on everything he can. He is notoriously gilding the Oval Office right now because he wants it to look more elegant. And there are people who, if you spray paint something gold, will think it is gold and will think it is beautiful beyond words. So Donald Trump literally creates the trappings. He creates the veneer. He creates the facade of all of this stuff. And you're right, people fall for it. Now, I agree that he must have some level of charm that one-on-one can pull you in. But at the same time, charm is not always why people love a leader. People love a leader who exerts or shows or creates the concept that he is a powerful person. So I, for example, don't think Stalin was necessarily charming one-on-one, nor Mao Zedong. But people adored them for being treated as though they were deified, as though they were gods, because they were so strong. So strength is a major attractant as well when it is created by a leader. And one of the things that, if we look back in history, that people were able to revile past presidents for was being that they were too nice, or that they were soft or spoken, or that they weren't in your face. So Biden was reviled for that, and Jimmy Carter was reviled for that, because look how powerless they are. And this is also a connection with what masculinity is supposed to be. Masculinity is supposed to be aggressiveness. It is supposed to not be that you are empathetic to people. It's not that you're nice to people. It's that you stomp on people and you push them aside. Donald Trump has shown from the very beginning of his political career that he is a bully, that he's a bully, that he insults people to their faces. He creates derisive nicknames for people. He mocks them physically by, the disabled reporter who had a physical condition that made him shake. Donald Trump, in front of millions of people on video, stands there and mocks the reporter and the way he physically was. And people didn't, and there millions of people didn't say, that's a terrible thing to do. Millions of people said, look how strong he is. Look how powerful he is. And again, this is one of his attractions. Instead of the decorum of politics that had always been followed for so many decades, in which a political debate was supposed to be respectful, that a president was supposed to be respectful of other people, in most situations. Donald Trump trashed that. Donald Trump kicked it out of the way and immediately just started mocking people and abusing people verbally. And for millions of others, for millions of Americans who thought, I've been downtrodden myself, I've been pushed around myself, and now here's this guy who's standing up for the country, but me too. And now those Democrats and those liberals who've been pushing me around for being heterosexual and Christian and being white and telling me that I'm bad for those things, now Donald Trump is standing up for me and he's pushing back. And now he is abusing other people verbally. And that makes me feel good because aggression is good. It's power, and power is good.
Part of it is these people, they want to emulate him. They like to see what he's doing. And here's the thing, they wish they could do it too. And they're sad they can't do it. So they admire him for doing it. And I think that he gets away with a lot of things on that basis. Just to name one is misogyny. Whatever happened to misogyny? You'd think that the women of the United States of America would have voted against him in November. They didn't. And a lot of people voted for him on the basis of his misogyny.
His grab him by the you know what?
A lot of people like that. And they say, gee, if I was rich and powerful, if I was like him, I'd break all the rules and do exactly what he's doing. So he's my model. He's the one I want to emulate. But let me go through some of the other things that we've noticed here. It's not just the merch and the golden sneakers. It's not just the gold cards, which give you access for, I don't know, is it $5 million? It's putting the Secret Service up at ridiculous rates at the Trump hotels and golf courses, making money off the Secret Service. That means taxpayer money. Building a community of billionaire oligarchs and getting them to make multi-million-dollar contributions and somehow allowing them access, and somehow also telegraphing if they don't want to make a contribution, he's going to find a way to criticize them, even it's really ridiculous, like DEI. Criticize DEI, but what you're really doing is criticizing the billionaires who don't go along with you. So he's using these arguments to influence them and to have them suck up to him and give him money. I guess he still is, trying to force Ukraine into the sale of its rare earth materials. That's got to be another ploy so he can make money or his friends can make money about the sale of rare earth. No question about it in my mind. As you mentioned, access clubs and parties that require at least $500,000 for you to attend. And don't forget, DeSoto, the Mediterranean Riviera. Do you think that's really about a Riviera that will benefit the people in Gaza or the people who live there, even if they're not from Gaza? It's going to benefit him. All his friends are going to be building fancy hotels. Remember, he does a lot of fancy hotels. And the one that really troubles me these days is that he is causing his various acolytes in the government who he has appointed to drop investigations and drop lawsuits. That would benefit the public. That would benefit quality of life in these United States. That would benefit public health. He causes these agencies to drop those lawsuits, to drop those investigations, and it's in return for contributions and phony tax reform for the multimillionaires. And then, of course, we have cryptocurrency, which is one of my personal favorites also. He's been manipulating cryptocurrency since the time he realized that it could be very profitable to him. All of these things, and there are more, all of these things have corruption written all over them.
Let me also point out, too, that he is an enabler of others doing the same thing. So, for example, Elon Musk did exactly the same thing. Elon Musk dismantled and destroyed agencies that were coming after him for his business dealings. And so, of course, Donald Trump, even if he knew that Musk was doing this, was totally on his side. Oh, yeah, they're investigating you. Wipe them out. Oh, they're investigating me, wipe them out. I can just write an executive order and end it. I can end the investigation. I can end any of the investigation into the corruption. And I can also earn myself more money because this person or this company gave me millions. Therefore, I'll do that for them. But it's just like organized crime. It's not that I'll do this favor and we're done. This is an expectation. This is exactly how organized crime works. Organized crime comes to you, the small business owner, and says, in the cliched way, hey, nice little business you got here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. Nothing will happen, however, if you start giving us kickbacks every month. Same with Donald Trump. All he's got to do is be in touch with a billionaire business owner and say, hey, nice little business you got here, Target. Nice little business you got here, Walmart. Nice little business you got here, Home Depot. You want to keep going like this? Well, start throwing some money at me and I'll make sure everything goes swimmingly for you. And as an aside, those three businesses that I just mentioned were the ones that went to him and said, you know what, if you keep up this tariff thing, you're going to trash our businesses and everybody's going to hate you because they're not going to be able to buy stuff. So that is a rare situation where apparently that pressure made him change his mind from one of his crazy ideas. But on the whole, it's going to be that he remains on the top and he gets them to give him money, whether it is for overt quid pro quo or whether it's just you owe me money because I'm the king and give me money and I'll make sure that everything goes okay for you. You don't give me money, I have the power to cause you disruption at the very least. So if you want good stuff to happen, give me money. If you don't give me money, well, I can't say what might go wrong for your business.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We haven't even started in the discussion of the tariffs. The tariffs are a great way to raise money. You can say to company A, let's call it Apple, for example, the tariffs are going to really hurt you. But if you give me money, I'll talk to you and we'll see if we can't give you a special exemption. That's only one of many companies that are seeking special exemptions. And how, DeSoto, do you get a special exemption? Give them money. The other thing I find that I think we should mention is this. Since the inauguration, since he got into office here, he really hasn't done anything for the country. He hasn't done anything to follow through on his promises. Eggs are still expensive. Groceries are harder to get and more expensive. All the things he promised for the people of the country have not been realized. Instead, he is out there doing his thing, playing golf at Mar-a-Lago and ignoring, the crises of the world. And I find, if you look at this carefully, what you find is that he isn't working. One commentator, said to me, gee whiz, what is he doing these days? He's not working. People, they have jobs, they do the job, they work. But he's not doing that. He's enjoying himself. But it's more than just enjoying himself. He's focused on making money for himself. So what you get is, when you think about it, is you get this corruption, you get Trump making a lot of money in every way he can think of, but not doing anything to help the country. Your thoughts?
Okay, well, Donald Trump has never worked certainly not for a very long time. Back when he was just a real estate mogul, he was all front, he was all facade, he was all bluster. And there are quotes that I remember reading about him doing crazy stuff like obsessing over, fabric for a room or something in a hotel room or something. I like that one. No, I like that one. That's not the job of the head of the company, for crying out loud, but that's the kind of stuff he did. And he's the public facade. He's the public spokesman who's out there in front of the cameras, not doing any work, but he is the idol. He's the figure. And that is very true. During his 2 presidential stints, he never did anything during his first stint as president. What did he do? He stays up all night posting online. And then if you remember, when his schedule was enumerated or specified in his first term, it was, well, from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. or to 12 noon is his personal time. And then from, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock is meetings. And then, he didn't do anything. And it's just a facade. And again, it builds up this, I'm incredibly valuable, I'm incredibly important, I'm incredibly wealthy, and don't you all love me for doing this? So this is not new. But the other aspect that, again, goes back to the cult thing, he lied blatantly and obviously when he was campaigning the second time. The statements about, I'll bring down prices on day one, which he said again and again, was obviously a lie. He did nothing. Not that he even could have. It was obviously preposterous fantasy, and yet people bought it. And then he didn't do it, and nobody said anything about it. If I'd been president, the Ukraine war would have never started, and I'll stop that war before I even take office. Okay, just recently, and this just is an incredible slap in the face. When somebody asked him about that, he said, I said it in jest. In other words, I was just joking when I said I would end the war in Ukraine. No, that's not a joke. A war, first of all, is not a joke. But secondly, and most importantly, you are obfuscating. You're saying it was a joke. No, it was a lie. And you're admitting it was a lie, which just came into your brain and which you vocalized because you knew it would suck people in. And it did. So when you said you joked, when you said it was a jest, no, you lied about it and people bought it. And people continued to literally give you money for lying about things like that. It's, again, incomprehensible, but that's the fact. It's all about money and power. Give me more money, give me more power. I'll never have enough, but I demand more and more and more.
That commentator I mentioned who said that the Democrats really had to focus on one thing, not chase Trump around and all his distraction points, which are many, many every day, in order to distract us. But if the Democrats were to try to focus on one thing, this commentator said they should focus on corruption because it's a weak point. And I'm not, even when he said this, actually, DeSoto, I wasn't sure that's true. Yeah. Because people feel that corruption is part of government anyway. People feel that corruption is part of the American culture anyway. And so they just don't get all that excited about it. They may be more excited about the cost of eggs than corruption. So here we are itemizing the visible points of corruption in Trump's administrations, both of them. The query, what can the Democrats really do? And will the public actually be affected by this? Will they rise up over corruption? We know they rise up over firing federal employees. They rise up over healthcare issues and federal programs of all kinds. But would they rise up over corruption? Or have we been lulled into this sense of acceptance and even admiration for him as a sharp businessman who does what American sharp businessmen do? Is it an effective attack?
I don't necessarily think it is. And I think the reason is that, one, he is so admired for his power and his wealth that just comes along with it. Oh, he's making more money. Well, see, that shows how good he is. But what we will get most affected by, or what we will react most to, is the stuff that touches us personally. And so corruption in Washington, D.C., while he sits in the gilded Oval Office, is removed from us. None of us is a multi-billionaire where things like this are discussed and huge amounts of money just flow to us. So we can't comprehend it. What we can comprehend are the things which touch us specifically. So if we know somebody who's been deported, that touches us. But if we know that prices are not going down, and that we know when we go into a store and now suddenly there's nothing from China, suddenly the merchandise that we expect isn't there, we can feel that as a tangible thing affecting us. So I would say that as offensive and in your face as corruption is, and let me just correct you by saying I don't think we've been lulled into it. We've been overwhelmed by it. It's like a dumpster, or it's like a cement truck has just poured cement onto us, and there's nothing we can do about it. We're overwhelmed by it because it's so overt. But again, going back to reality, if I go into a store and I can't buy something that I expect to be there because it's made in China and now it's no longer being imported, that's going to touch me. That's going to be something that's going to really make me sit up and take notice. So I think that's probably what's going to affect people more than the distant, fanciful, up in the clouds, the gods are talking to each other and giving each other billions. We're so far apart from that it's not going to really touch us as personally as this other stuff is. So yes, I agree that Trump's whole mode of operation is to overwhelm you one thing after another. And Steve Bannon came out and said, this is the way we do it. This is the way we planned it. Constantly overwhelm people with a barrage of things, and they get so beaten down that they'll just allow it to continue. So I don't think corruption is going to do it. I think it's going to be more personal. It's going to have to be things that touch us as individual citizens that we're going to truly react to.
What about the media, DeSoto? Has the media done a good job on revealing the corruption and putting it in perspective for us, or have they also taken a pass on that particular issue?
I think at the moment they're taking a pass on it. And I think what has to happen is there has to be a focus and a list very clearly of, here's what he did for these donors. These are the donors who benefited, and here is directly how that happened. This company, this individual, this company, this individual, to make it super clear that that's what's going on. But again, it's part of a much bigger picture. It's part of a much bigger picture. But if there is a focus on it, it needs to be like that article that you cited at the beginning of our conversation here, in which there's a clear quid pro quo going on. This money, this is the result. This money, this is the benefit. These are the things that he extorted money from people and companies in order to give them this. And here's the amount of money, and here's what the individual or the company got for what they paid for.
Yeah, last night on 60 Minutes, there was a story about some evidence that for some reason was dormant between 9/11 and now. And
I watched that.
Yeah, that was quite extraordinary. And what it left with me, and I'm interested in your reaction, is we live in a world of two alternative universes. It's what the government and the people in the government know, and not necessarily collectively, but the ones who are authorized to know, and what the public knows. It's different. And I think that applies here too. You talk about making a list, and you're talking about, finding out what money is passing hands. And we may know that, and the media may cover that, maybe not completely, but at least in part. But there's so many other things that we don't know. And we're never going to know everything because we are the people, and the people never know as much as those in power. Your thoughts on that final point?
Yes, you're absolutely right. There is so much stuff that goes on that we never will know about. And I can remember not only reading about, but being told about other dictators in other countries and how they functioned. And reading about Batista, who was running Cuba in the 1950s, and Ferdinand Marcos, who was running the Philippines for decades, since 60s, 70s, into the 80s. in all of those cases, there were some open things that were going on, but there was a lot more behind the scenes. And so I remember being told, anytime money comes into the Philippines from outside, for example, American aid or American payments for various things, Marcos just skimmed an agreed upon chunk of that money right off the top that went right into his bank account. And this is the same way it always is. Countries that are poverty stricken, that are in ruins, the leaders will live opulently. The leaders will be chauffeured around in limousines and will live again in a palace of some kind. And sometimes it's even called a palace. And people will accept that just as the way things function. So we need to be made more aware. This needs to be articulated for us again and enumerated and very clearly pointed out. This is what's going on. The reason he did this is because of this, for us to be able to understand it. But that level of corruption, there is, as you just said, there's so much that we'll never know. I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do remember when Frank Fosse was mayor repeatedly of the city of Honolulu. There was a huge scandal in the 1970s about the development of a parcel of downtown land called Kukui Plaza, on which 2 condos were built, or 2 high-rise towers were built. And Fosse was receiving money from the developers, and Fosse was giving jobs to his buddies who were giving him money. And this was publicized a great deal by reporters from the 2 newspapers who were really tracking all this down. And it didn't bring him down. It didn't destroy him. We got so overwhelmed by it, we sort of just threw our hands in the air and said, there's really nothing we can do anymore. I can't think about this anymore, back in the 1970s. And that's just the city and county of Honolulu's government, not the entire United States government. So based on these historical precedents, this isn't new. And unfortunately, again, it gets to where it overwhelms you and you stop thinking about it. So that's a pessimistic outlook. That's a pessimistic way for me to be ending this, but it is reality. And that's why I say I go back to, in order for us to really chip away at the Donald Trump monolithic dictatorship, it's going to have to be through a different tactic than just the corruption, as offensive as it is, because that's not what's going to really grab the mass of people to make them fight back.
Okay, DeSoto, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much to our guest, DeSoto Brown, an historian in the fullest sense of the word. I'm Jay Fidell, host of American Issues Take One, and we've been discussing, more than anything, Trump is a statement of corruption. Thanks to our viewers for watching. We'll see you again soon for the next one. Aloha.